さて、リーダートークの話は、これまでとなります。次に行きましょう。村山さん、次はどんな話になりますか？
はい、皆さんお待たせしました。次のセッションはこの話になります。
村山さん、これ英語の本じゃないですか。私見たことないんですけど。
木下さん、この方はウィリアム・ウェッブといって、イギリスでワイヤレスコミュニケーション系の権威として、IET 会長や王立工学アカデミーなど多くの大学の教授職、名誉博士号を持たれているすごい方で、IoT や 5G に関する論文書籍を多く出されている方なんです。そして今回、Advantechコネクトのこのイベントでは、スペシャルゲストとして参加いただき、昨年出版された IoT MyTh というこの本をベースにしたお話をしていただきます。話のストーリーですが、IoT という言葉が出だした2011年に遡り、その時の世界の IoT デバイスの数の予測と、10年が経過した今の状況が当時の予測と比べてどうなっているのか、そしてその予測との差を踏まえて、なぜその差が生まれてきたのか、これからの新しいテクノロジーを今度は踏まえて、将来の IoT はどうしていくべきなのかという点を共有していただけます。非常に貴重なお話です。15分ほどの英語になりますが、ぜひお楽しみください。それでは、ウィリアム・ウェッブ氏による The Internet of Myths をどうぞ。
Welcome to you all. I'm delighted to be here today, virtually at least, and I'm planning to spend the next 15 minutes or so taking you through the Internet of Things and why it is disappointed over the last decade and what we can do to make sure that that doesn't happen in the coming few years. And this is based on a book that I co-wrote a year ago, where I explored in some detail what had been going wrong and what we needed to do to make things right in the future. So if we go back to 2011, there was a lot of hype about the Internet of Things. Cisco, Ericsson, and many others published forecasts, and they were all pretty well aligned. They all expected to see something like 50 billion connected devices by the year 2020. But we've now passed the year 2020, so we can check how well we did. Did we hit that 50 billion? Well, the answer is no. Now, it's very difficult to know exactly how many connected devices there are because, unlike cell phones, connected devices don't necessarily all have subscriptions. Quite a lot are connected via Bluetooth or Wi-Fi during the home or the office, and there's no real way of monitoring how many there are. We can look at things like chipset sales and so on and build up estimates, and that's been done by Transformer, who were one of the partners in the book that I wrote. And what you can see from that is that we've hit something like 8.5 billion connected devices in 2020. So a long way short of 50. We haven't even managed to make 20% of that forecast. And Transformers show a nice steady growth. But even on that growth path, we're unlikely to hit that 50 billion forecast until somewhere between 2035 and 2040. So what went wrong? Why was that? Why did we not achieve what we hoped to achieve? We talk about a number of different reasons, but I think one of the key reasons is a much too simplistic view about what was needed to do to get devices to connect. So this is a classic example. This is a connected trash can, and there are many companies offering this. And the concept is very straightforward. Within the trash can, there's a sensor. It senses when it's nearly full, and then you send out the trash collection service to empty it. And the thinking was that this would allow less trash collection because you only can collect when the bin is nearly full, and also you could collect more often if that bin was filling up more frequently. So that would be a great service. And to connect the bin is pretty straightforward, but the problem is what needs to be done beyond that. So suddenly you've got a whole department whose whole way of working revolves around driving around a circuit, emptying every bin on that circuit. Now they have to pop out and empty individuals one at a time, wherever they might be, as and when they get the call to do so. And really what you need for that is a lot of very small individual kind of collection systems, a kind of an Uber of bin collection. that would be a completely different model. You'd need completely different lorries or in this case, small mini kind of pickup trucks. You'd need a different skills in the workforce. You'd need a completely different scheduling system. You'd need a different rota system. The amount of change that you need to have to make this actually work in the real world is enormous. And although the benefits are there, they're probably not sufficient to justify that degree of change and bring that about. And that, I think, was what was not really understood initially, that behind every connection, there's a whole business process that needs to be maintained and managed. A second problem is the connection itself. There's plenty of ways of making that connection, and in a way, that's the problem. What you can see from this chart is that there's just a lot of different types of connection. We don't need to worry too much about each individual one, but what we do need to worry about is the fact that there are so many. If you're building an Internet of Things device, you have to choose which connection technology you're going to put into that device. It's not normally economically sensible to put all these in. That's just too expensive and will probably consume the battery too quickly. So you have to choose one, but which one? And that's a real problem. If you don't know which one, then you have a significant risk of choosing the wrong one and ending up with devices that will no longer connect after a few years if that particular system is withdrawn or stops working. Or you end up with a system that doesn't have the required range or battery power or whatever. So the fact that we have so many different competing technology standards hasn't helped. And if we look at things like fitness trackers that have taken off and done well, they've not had this problem. They've all just used Bluetooth. It was very obvious in their case that the right technology to connect the fitness tracker to your mobile phone would be Bluetooth. And that takes away that whole barrier and complexity of trying to understand which technology to use. So that's been a problem. It still remains a problem, although we are gradually coming down to a smaller and smaller number of different connectivity solutions. And then the third problem area is, as I touched upon with the case of the trash cans, there are just so many different areas that need to be looked at and resolved within a company that is deploying Internet of Things technology within its operational system, whether that be to track parcels, to track parts through a factory, to empty trash cans, to help with connected animals on a farm. In all these cases, you typically need to change your whole business process to allow the data to be used and to make changes. Your business model may change, particularly if your revenue stream is now somewhat different. Maybe you're offering a service rather than a product. And that will then impact into the finance department. You need different kinds of people often, people that are more digitally skilled, more white collar, less blue collar kind of workers. And your relationships with your partners may change dramatically. You may hope that they will embrace this IoT technology as well, such that when they deliver parts to you, they can be tracked, or they can form part of a bigger system that is then tracked and monitored using the IoT solution. That means different overall business systems, and it means a new culture as well. If you're changing a factory from one where people operate machines like lathes to one where those machines are operated by computer systems, then that's a completely different kind of company, a different kind of culture. So a lot of things need to be done before you can really introduce IoT and make it work. So those are some of the problems in the past. What about the future? And there's a number of promising new developments, but they need to be treated with caution and used in the right way. So one we hear a lot about, quite rightly, is artificial intelligence. And I see artificial intelligence as enormously valuable. We're already seeing, for example, how it can now translate from one language to another in a very effective manner, immediately and for free. That's an enormous benefit for humankind. In the IoT world, the hypothesis has been that the IoT systems, the sensors, will generate a huge amount of data. And all this data can then move into a big cloud system. And then artificial intelligence can act upon that data. And it can look for correlations that we didn't know existed, which could be really powerful in delivering all sorts of insights into how better structure our businesses and the world around us. And I think that's absolutely right. But it only works when you've got the data in the first place. And so I see AI as something that enhances an IoT system that's already there and working well, and it makes it work even better. But until you've got the IoT systems in place delivering all the data, then you can't really use AI to make sense of that data. So don't rely on AI to make IoT hit its targets of 50 billion devices. Rely on AI to deliver even more value from IoT once we've hit those targets. A second area of promise is 5G. Of course, we hear about 5G all the time. And the proponents of 5G have made much of the fact that it's got great strengths in Internet of Things. But this isn't quite right, actually. So 5G does not add any new Internet of Things technology for the vast number of devices that are sensors. Those devices that are sending small amounts of data will still connect via the 4G technology, narrowband Internet of Things. It's been rebranded as 5G, but that doesn't change anything. And indeed, 5G may confuse because people expect something new, but they're not actually receiving anything new, and they may await that, and that may add what appears to be an extra form of connectivity that we don't really need. 5G also does add low latency connectivity, and that could be really important for a subset of machines. But I think that's a fairly small subset, perhaps 1% by volume, although by value it might be much higher than that. So what should we do to avoid these mistakes? Well, above all, we need to deliver complete solutions that add value. And I would concentrate on segments and sectors where IoT can be introduced in a way that doesn't change what is currently being done too much, but has a clear business case. It makes it better, more productive, more efficient. That means there's limited change needed, but an immediate financial benefit. And delivering a complete solution into that space can make sure that the customer is not stuck with trash cans that can connect, but nothing more than that. So it needs to be packaged through a systems integrator or some similar kind of entity that can draw together all the various elements and really make them work. And something I'm going to keep saying over the next few slides, this is a slow process. Businesses do not adopt new technologies quickly. So it needs to be done patiently in a way that delivers value to the business. And I wanted to pick up on a couple of particular examples. So one that is very much to the fore at the moment is the industrial IoT, the idea that within an industrial setting like a factory or a warehouse, IoT could transform that. And of course, it does. It's not a new concept. Entities like Ocado have been using IoT and robotic technology in their factories almost ever since they started, over 5 years ago now. So this concept is already one that's proven. And the hypothesis is there's a lot more to do there. And in particular, that the low latency aspect of 5G might be very valuable in large scale plants that manufacture automotives or things like that, automobiles or things like that, in order to really allow those machines to be operated very tightly and precisely. And we see lots of interest here, lots of proofs of concept, and a strong need to accelerate this change because of things like COVID and the desire to automate workplaces. But we need to be careful about proof of concepts. It's very easy for the technology department to have great fun with a new technology, proving that it actually works. But it can be very hard to make it out of the technology department into business as usual, unless that concept trial is sponsored by senior management itself and involves finance and other areas. And I think one of the problems for Internet of Things over the last few years has been the proof of concept hell, the fact that it's easy to have a trial with the technology department, but very hard to move beyond that trial into real operation where real money is involved. The other area I wanted to touch upon was smart cities, another area we hear a lot about. And we hear, again, about hundreds of trials that have taken place in the smart city. And a smart city is a rather nebulous thing, but the idea is a lot of data is being generated from all the different kinds of sensors you can see on that slide, from transportation sensors, healthcare sensors, metering sensors, pollution monitoring sensors, water level sensors. All these are feeding back into a data lake that those who control the city can use in order to make sure that everything in the city is optimized. Cities, of course, have changed dramatically with COVID. We visit them far less at the moment. There's far less congestion. So the emphasis on improving, for example, transportation has been reduced, but the emphasis on ensuring that we can track people, we know where they've been, such that we can trace their contacts should it turn out that they've had COVID-19, and that we can make sure that the logistics work really well in a world where demand can suddenly change when people start panic buying, or that the need for certain things, certain protective equipment, suddenly rises to the fore. So all these are really important for smart cities, but we're only going to succeed if we bring together all the interested parties. And some of those are not for-profit entities, they are political and societal bodies like the city councils, the people that live in the city, people that work in the city, and they have a lot of different objectives, a lot of different concerns, things like privacy. And it's making sure that we find a solution that fits all those that is going to be the way ahead in implementing smart cities. And that's really difficult when you have so many different actors with so many different desires, getting them all to work together. It's going to be really difficult. So again, patiently work through this one, finding a way to add value. So I want to finish on what has been to some degree a little bit of a downbeat presentation, in that I've been pointing out that we haven't been able to deliver yet the aspirations of the 50 billion connected devices. But I believe very strongly in the Internet of Things. I've started companies in this space, I've run standards bodies. I think it is of vital importance in a world of an aging population where we have climate change, congestion, and increasing complexity. I don't think there's any other way to resolve these than using IoT as the base to gather the data that we need to control and optimize the systems. And I believe that an original forecast of 50 billion devices is credible. It's only 10 devices for every person with a cell phone on the planet. That's not that many. We can get there. We just need to work our way patiently towards achieving that. And that means learning the lessons from the past, applying them to the future, and patiently delivering value through Internet of Things technology. Thank you very much.
わあ、この方さすがですね。企業だったらなかなか言えないような、身も蓋もないようなことを冷静に分析されてますよね。確かに10年前、IoT というのは何でもかんでもインターネットにつながる。それが加速度的に増加するというふうに言われてました。でも現実を見ると、特にこの日本国内では、まだできてないことってたくさんあるように思います。さて、村松さん、ウェブの話をサマリーしましょうか。大きく3つのポイントを共有していただけますか？
はい、木下さん。ウィリアム・ウェッブ。のっけから面白かったですね。IoT に関して過去や新技術をこき下ろしていらっしゃいました。
ですね。
はい。2011年、当時シスコが予測していた2021年に世界の IoT デバイスは500億デバイスに膨れ上がるだろうという予測に対して、現状の IoT デバイスは予想をはるかに下回る85億デバイスであるということでした。これは何が悪かったのかという切り口で3つのことをウェブ氏は言われましたね。まず1つ目、それが本当に価値のあるソリューションだったのかという点でした。ウェブ氏はスライドで IoT ゴミ箱の事例で説明をされていましたが、現状の仕事のプロセスを効率化するために、理論上 IoT デバイスを導入して効率化できると思って理想を抱いたとしても、現実的にはその効率化が現在の仕事のプロセスに関わる人、物、地域の受け入れなど全てを考慮した場合に真の効率化にならない場合が多いということです。
確かにそうですね。余計なお世話とか、なければなくて、そもそもなかったらないで構わないと。そういったケースよくありそうですね。
はい。まさにその通りですね。さらに2つ目ですが、IoT デバイスを導入する際にデータ伝送速度、伝送距離などによりたくさんの無線方式が存在する。どれを選択すべきか、そういうことが導入時の障壁になっているということでしたね。
はい。これは先ほどリンダが説明していたインターオペラビリティの問題そのものだと思います。一つのシステムに統合するときの要素間の接続があまりにも別々それぞれすぎるので難しいということですね。
はい、そうですね。そして3つ目。それは企業が DX を推進するために IoT に関しては7つの問題をクリアしなければならないということです。その問題とは、プロセス、ビジネスモデル、ファイナンス、ピープル、 パートナーズ、システムズ、カルチャー、それぞれに顕在した問題の解決です。
村松さん、そんなに問題が多いとお先真っ暗な感じがしますけど。
いえ、大丈夫です。Webb は最後の取りまとめの中で希望という観点でのメッセージを残しています。先ほどお話ししましたように、過去の IoT の発展を阻んだ3つの問題、そして AI や 5G など新しいテクノロジーの復旧課題などを踏まえても、決して悲観することはなく、3つのステップを踏まえれば IoT は将来大きく発展するだろうということを言われてました。1つ目は、IoT の効果が高い明確なソリューションを選び、定量化ができるビジネスケースを考えましょうということでした。2つ目は、さらにすべての利害関係者の利益を考えた現実的なモデルを考えましょうということでした。そして最後の3つ目は、このプロセスは急ぐことなく、とてもゆっくりしたプロセスであるということを認識しましょうということでした。何でも初期の展開には時間がかかるものです。辛抱強く IoT の価値を世界にもたらしましょうということで Webb の話は終わりました。
村松さん、ありがとうございます。私もこれからこの Webb の本を読んでさらに勉強したいと思います。